Nick Ferguson, former Bronco, joins us now. Mile High Sports, covers the Broncos, talks NFL, and he joins us at Nick Ferguson _25. Follow him on Twitter. It's a good follow. And he joins us now with a look at Eagles and Broncos. Welcome back, Nick. How you been?
I'm doing well, fellas. Are you enjoying that one day of warm weather?
Oh, it's been more than one day. It's been all week up here. Don't sell us short. It's been a great fall up here. And look, the only day that was nasty was the game last week when the Eagles played the Niners. Was the only day that really wasn't nice weather. It's been perfect up here, and I guess they're going to have another good game day on Sunday. So I'll tell you this: are you intrigued by the offense of the Eagles against this defense of the Broncos? I mean, the Broncos' offense has been abysmal, but does this make this matchup really worth watching?
Yeah, it does, because when you've been able to watch, and you guys have watched really closely, the maturation process of Carson Wentz and his early coming of age, and he took his lumps earlier last season when he was tossed into the lineup, but he seems to, like he's a more polished quarterback right now, and every player, no matter what sport you play, you want to make sure you're battle tested. And what way to know, at a 7-1 record going into the playoffs with where they are right now, being the Eagles, you want to test yourself against the best in the league. And the Denver pride themselves on being able to play defense and no-fly zone. You mentioned the fact that the offense hasn't really played up to par, but this is a defense-first team. We saw it when they won the Super Bowl with Peyton Manning. That is still the kind of motto of this team, and they're trying to bounce back from losing 3 straight games. And now with Carson Wentz and how everyone is talking about the Eagles and flying high, you have the Eagles flying high versus the no-fly zone. So when that happens, something great is going to happen for us this weekend, and we're sure going to be entertained.
One thing for sure, they struggled offensively the last couple of weeks. They did make the quarterback change, but what has been the issue with the offense? Has it just been the quarterback? Why can't they get points on the board?
Well, when you look at a situation, it's easy to look at the head coach and blame it on Vance because he's in his first year, and the idea is that he can't lead men, and Adam Gase is Mike McCoy is the offensive coordinator, and saying, well, maybe his system isn't sufficient for what the Broncos want to do. And then you look at the personnel. To me, I blame everyone. Everyone has a part in what's going on with this team up front. For the past couple of years, they really couldn't move the ball, and even Peyton Manning struggled and took a lot of shots. And the same happened with Trevor Siemian, is the fact that the guys on the edge, which they thought that they kind of solidified, they brought in, Minnick Watson, O'Leary from Dallas, and Boyle, they drafted him. He was their first-round draft pick, and if you watch them in training camp, it looked like this was going to be a tough bunch that was going to punch you in the mouth, like the Denver of old, the teams that I played on. But it just seemed like something just fell apart. Anytime that you're struggling to run the ball, that's going to be really difficult on your offense. It's going to make it tough on your quarterback. So that means that now he is attempting maybe 35 passing attempts per game. That's not good, because as a defense, as an opposing defense, they can't run the ball. So we don't have to bring 9 men down in the box. We can keep all our guys. We can play zone coverage. We can play man. We can play cover 2. We can play some change-up coverages in our sub-packages, and know that no matter what you try to do from a passing standpoint, we have you dead to rights. And right now, that's where the Broncos are right now. They're trying to find some kind of groove, something, and so much so that the Broncos had to go to Brock Osweiler as a starting quarterback. So that says a lot when here's a guy who left the team, went to Houston, went to Cleveland, now he's back in the fold. Now he's your starting quarterback. And I know he's been fired up this week for the opportunity and to compete against the Eagles. And, anytime you have a guy like Carson Wentz who's playing well and you're a quarterback and Brock seems like he's a competitor, you want to elevate your level of play. But we'll have to see if he can put his play where his mouth is on Sunday.
Hey, Nick, if it were you, would you have made the quarterback change this week, knowing the way the Eagles defense gets after the QB and knowing the difference maybe between those two guys? One guy's a little bit more statuesque, the other guy has some mobility.
No, I would have made the move. When you look at what Brock Osweiler can do, because sometimes we focus too much on what a guy can't do. But, he does a great job getting outside the pocket. That's why they drafted Paxton Lynch, to have another guy who's really tall, 6'7", who is very mobile, who can get outside the pocket. And anytime we talk about quarterbacks, we're talking about arm strength. And Brock Osweiler definitely has that. Now it's the decision-making that was problematic for him and everywhere that he's been outside of Denver. And, you guys have to remember this. When Peyton Manning was in the room, the pecking order was Peyton Manning, Brock Osweiler, and then Trevor Siemian. So Brock does have some experience, even though he hasn't really played the way that we all would have hoped that he would play. But that experience and him being humbled, for me, that's the biggest thing for Brock. The fact that he's more humble now as a quarterback. And with that, that's going to go and show a lot as far as his game planning moving forward and this week against the Philadelphia Eagles.
So, Nick, you played safety, so you can take us right into that defensive game plan a little bit of what you think the Broncos are going to do. Would you use Talib on Ertz this week if you're Vance Joseph?
No, I wouldn't do that, because now if you put him on Ertz, now you're taking him out of position and where you can use him maybe on Alshon Jeffrey. To me, that's the matchup you want. You have a big, tall wide receiver. We saw him make a great catch last week against the 49ers, and to me, this is a matchup game. So you have to put your best players on your opponent's best players. And I think with the emergence of Nelson Aguilar, and everyone thought, well, is this kid a bust? Well, he's going to live up to his draft potential. I can tell you right now, watching him on film, it just seemed like he's a different person. I have no idea what happened. I don't know what Carson Wentz said to him or what happened in the offseason, but he looks like a different person. And that's the thing that makes this matchup so great, because you have Aguilar, you have Torrey Smith, you have Alshon Jeffrey, and then, there's Chris Harris, there's Bradley Roby, Aqib Talib, right? So now that matchup, can they move these guys around? Because, Joe Woods, he's going to be aggressive. He's going to play some zone, but he's going to be aggressive because he knows that, Carson Wentz, we don't want to allow him to sit in that pocket and pick us apart. So they're going to have to put some heat on him. That means you have to play man coverage in his back end. And now that means Philadelphia, we're really going to see the caliber of offensive weapons that they have, and if they are ready to take their game to that championship level facing this Denver Broncos defense.
Nick, I know one place I'll be looking is where number 58 lines up, Von Miller. Are they going to – you think they'll move him around? Because Lane Johnson out here has talked about, boy, I'm really looking forward to going up against a quality guy like Von Miller. But do you think they move him around and then put him up against Vaitai and Big V?
Well, absolutely. Anytime, you have a guy of the talent that Von has, and I've said this and I will continue to say this, we talked about the no-fly zone. He is just as much a part of that no-fly zone as any of the guys in the secondary, because pressure and coverage go hand in hand. So, yes, you can expect Joe Woods to probably move him around and just kind of maybe loop him inside on some double A-gap blitzes just so Carson Wentz sees a different look, so he doesn't see the same time. All we have to do is kind of widen Von Miller, maybe slide a back or a tight end to him, and then now we can work one-on-ones with our blocks inside. So the best thing for them, move him around, cause some havoc, mix up some looks for Carson Wentz so he doesn't get too comfortable in the pocket.
Talk with Nick Ferguson, former Broncos safety, Mile High Sports here. I think the big change this week is if Philly uses Ajayi and how he fits into that offense already.
Well, yeah, he's only been there a couple of days, and talk about one heck of a midseason trade. And usually when we talk midseason trades, we look at baseball and basketball, never so much in the NFL. But
right.
When you talk about picking up a championship piece, they did that with Ajayi. And for me, I said this before, I liken what the Philadelphia Eagles are doing from a personnel standpoint to what we've seen with the New England Patriots, because the idea is that, well, you have a crowded backfield full of running backs. Everyone's not going to get their touches. That's a problem you definitely want to have, because now you have a lot of weapons. Now you can really press that defense. Now you can really test the edges, test inside. You got guys who can pound them inside, but LeGarrette Blount, whether it's a third and short or inside the goal line, and then you bring in Ajayi, I mean, you could run screen passes with him. You could do so many things with him because he's that much of a dynamic player. And when you talk about trying to get this Eagles team into kind of like a playoff Super Bowl mode, it's all about personnel. It's all about confidence. That's what Carson Wentz has given his team. But bringing Ajayi in definitely gives you an added piece, an impact player that I would just say, well, they didn't really have from a home run standpoint. Smallwood came in. He's done well. But when you talk about home run hitters, especially in the backfield, Ajayi definitely give the Philadelphia Eagles of that, especially in the division that they're in right now.
They've added something with that. We'll see how much he plays. Let me ask you, Nick. This is a team that got off to a great start, and then all of a sudden they can't score. They still have a good defense. They got to travel to Philly. What's the key on Sunday? How does Denver feel like they can steal a win against Philadelphia?
No, I start starting fast because we've seen in the past couple of weeks in these losses inside the red zone, the offense is somewhat stalled. And, we continue to talk about the ground game, trying to get that on track. And to take a page out of Sean Payton's book, when Darren Sproles was a member of the New Orleans Saints, they didn't really have a great ground game as far as ground and pound, but they found ways to get their running backs involved in the game, and that was the screen passes. So, that's what Denver Broncos are going to have to do. Mike McCoy is going to have to find ways to get Booker, to get C.J. Anderson, all those backs involved in the game in some way, because if you don't, now you're talking about allowing that Eagles defense, that Jim Sports defense to pin their ears back, to know that we don't have to worry about trying to play the pass and the run. All we have to do is get upfield. So you have to do something off schedule to keep this defense honest. If they can do that and try to keep pace, because that defense is going to make some stops, then the Broncos may have an opportunity to come out of Philly with a win.
Nick, is it fair to say that Mike McCoy 2.0 isn't as good as Mike McCoy, the original version?
Yeah, it is. And I'll say this, it's hard to play chess with checker pieces. And right now, once again, that offensive line is not where they need it to be. And, he's a great offensive coordinator. Don't get me wrong. But right now, since that offensive line is not giving him, any wiggle room as far as being able to create a yard or 2 inches on that line of scrimmage or establish a new line of scrimmage, it's been very difficult. So it's hard to kind of get in the rhythm, stay in the game plan. Now you have to try to change things up, and players love routine. Guys like to try to get into a rhythm, and Trevor Siemian, he is a rhythm type of quarterback. Anything outside of that, he's going to find trouble. We've seen that in the Kansas City game on the first play, I believe the second play of the game, where he threw an interception. So it's all about trying to get out fast, establish a rhythm, and stay right there and try to keep pace with this up-tempo, fast Philadelphia flying offense.
And the last thing is, it seems that a team that got off to a good start and now has struggled, it seems that there's some tension possibly out there now as the season, starts to go off the rails a little bit.
Well, that happens a lot. I call that the cannibalism effect, because when things are going great, all the things, the bad fundamentals and techniques, no one's really paying attention to it because winning takes care of everything. But once you start to lose a couple of games, you lose the game against the Giants coming off a bye that you should win against an inferior team, and then now you have 2 other losses, to Kansas City and the Chargers, to add with that. Now there's a little finger pointing, because that defense knows that, listen, we're a great defense. We don't know how long we're going to be together, because there's some guys whose contracts are going to be expiring shortly. So you have a short window to make things happen as far as trying to get back to the Super Bowl. So I can understand those guys in the locker room, being upset. And really quickly, in my days with the Denver Broncos, we had a similar issue. Jake Plummer was our quarterback. The offense was struggling. We were one of the top 5 as far as against the rush and the top 10 in total defense. But our offense would turn the ball over and put us on a short field and then put us right in the crosshairs for someone to score points on us. After a while, you get upset. You say, well, we're all paid to do a job. We need you to do your job on the offensive side of the ball. So I can understand it, because on that no-fly zone, there's a lot of guys with a lot of attitude, and that attitude shows in the way they play, but you don't want that now to start turning to finger-pointing inside and outside the locker room.
Nick Ferguson here, former Broncos safety, Mile High Sports, at Nick Ferguson _25 on Twitter, and follow him there for his thoughts on the NFL and all sports. A really good follow, and good enough to have him on the Sports Bash Live 97.3 ESPN. Thank you, Nick. We'll talk soon, pal.
All right, thank you, guys. Enjoy that weather while it's going to last.
We're going to, man.
I'm wearing shorts in November.
We both got shorts on.
Absolutely.
All right.